Should this have been a penalty for Liverpool in the last minute of the game, which could have changed the result as well? Finished Liverpool 1, Manchester City 1. What does this mean for the title race? We're going to talk about that in this video. It was a very interesting game tactically. I think end to end there was a lot of things that each team did to really capitalise on their chances. But we saw in that second half, Liverpool just came dominating and arguably should have won that match. We're going to get into a few more details as this video goes on. There's a couple players, I think, mostly for Liverpool actually, who were really crucial to the outcome. I think they put in some really good performances. Man City, surprisingly, actually quite poor. We know they struggle at Anfield, and they always have done, but they were poor yet again today. And what does this mean for the title race? We've seen Arsenal get a last-minute win against Brentford yesterday. I don't know. I don't want to say that it's given Arsenal the advantage, but I really expected to see Man City on the top of the table so far by the end of today, and they really struggled today. It was actually a really interesting affair. I think Pep Guardiola actually was beaten in tactics today. I think Klopp did a phenomenal job with how he moved his players around and the tactical tweaks he made. The substitutions as well, I think, really changed the game. But regardless, let's have a look at the tactics in how it finished 1-1 in the end. I think first half, Man City did start much better. Liverpool were all over the place, especially the first 25 minutes or so. Man City were phenomenal. But let's look at what happened when Man City were in possession. So the team lined up a little bit like this in their normal almost 3-2-5 formation that we see, or this, I don't know, 3-2-4-1, depends on what you want to call it. But we normally see this back three of Ake, Akanji and Walker. Again, sometimes Diaz flips in or Stones is in the defence, and we see a lot of changes to this back line, but the principle is still the same. And ultimately what we then see is Ederson kind of becomes part of that back four, and it allows for Stones to do this thing that we see quite consistently, which is push into that midfield alongside Rodri and almost become the double pivot. What's most surprising, though, is that normally out of this double pivot, you'd expect it to be Rodri that maybe pushes forward more. But actually, as we saw against Man United the other day, Stones very much pushed into that attacking line quite often, or at least into the midfield, like further up into the midfield. But they lined up in this formation. Liverpool were ultimately a 4-5-1 off the ball. Ultimately, not much happened with the Man City attacks. In I think the first half an hour or so, a lot of the ball kind of ended up going through Foden and Alvarez. We saw Liverpool almost play this three at the back formation, but where Gomez is a bit more defensive, he had Foden covered, and Alvarez was just left with so much space on this left-hand side. And actually, I think on another day, Alvarez takes them chances a lot more. He was constantly running at the back line, and the Liverpool defence were just dropping off, and the crosses were coming in. Haaland, De Bruyne and Foden really charging into the box. But actually, what I noticed as well is quite often, again, as we see with Ederson almost coming into a centre-back position, Ake would push really far up as a left wing. Alvarez was kind of coming into the box, and Silva was picking up the ball out on this left-hand side, looking for the crosses to come in. Alvarez, Haaland, De Bruyne and Foden, with Stones almost coming into support, were all charging into the box, and it was causing the Liverpool defence to really have to sit back, and then they were struggling to get the ball out in transition to start with. I think Liverpool really struggled because I think their long balls were quite often isolated to Núñez and Diaz, who, against Walker, I think he did a really good job of... I don't think technically he was great on the ball, but we know what Walker can do. He's so quick that any ball over the top, and you're going to bet on him getting there first. And we saw that quite often. Whenever the ball was won, Mac Allister or Szoboszlai would kind of look for these kind of runs over the top. And I think Akanji and Walker covered that quite well. Then in the second half, we saw Man City really struggling to get onto the ball, and their passing actually today was poor. I think they only had an 81% successful pass rate, which for a Man City team who average normally 90+% is really poor. They just could not get a string of passes together, and we saw Pep try and change this, and he brought Alvarez off for Doku and Kovacic on, interestingly, for De Bruyne. But what that then meant is that we saw Silva go out to this right side, and Foden almost took the number 10 that we normally see De Bruyne play. What this change did to kind of allow Man City to do is get a bit more control in that midfield. They were really losing that midfield battle. And instead, so Stones dropped into a centre-back position in a back four, and then they lined up with a midfield four of Doku, Kovacic, Rodri, and Silva went out to that right. Foden would drop in to kind of make a bank of 5 in that midfield, but primarily was almost playing as this number 10 alongside Haaland, almost as a full striker. Didn't really have much of an impact. I actually thought Doku on this left-hand side, I was really excited to see him come on because I thought, while Alvarez was missing a load of chances, Doku would have been the person you'd want on the ball in them situations. I don't think actually much happened. He did get a shot away that hit the post, but other than that, Man City just really looked stuck, and that's not something we normally see from them. And I think the major stat actually out of this all is that Haaland, who is normally such a good goal scorer and just creates chaos for a backline, he only got 1 touch in the opponent's box today, and that's for him really quite poor. So I think Man City were just stuck for ideas. They didn't know what to do, and Liverpool really dominated. So let's have a look then at how Liverpool played when they had possession. So as I said, out of the ball, Man City set up in a 4-4-2 with Haaland and Foden almost as the front two. Liverpool kind of played, it's kind of I want to say it was to start with a 4-2-2, and especially when they were playing from goal kicks, we'd see this almost be the kind of lineup. And Elliott and Szoboszlai kind of took in that half spaces that we see Liverpool do a lot. And progressing with the ball out from the back, Kelleher would often look for Van Dijk or Quansah, and then the ball will progress towards Bradley. But actually, very quickly in the attacking transition, this became a 3-2-5, and Bradley was becoming incredibly attacking. Van Dijk would shift across, Quansah as the centre, and Gomez almost as that left centre-back position. And they create this 3-2, you could call it a 3-2-5 or a 3-2-4-1, similar to what Man City play, actually. And consistently, Bradley was getting the ball out on this right-hand side, and I think Diaz was finding so much space for the runs in behind. Elliott and Szoboszlai, as I said, almost in the half spaces. What I've noticed Liverpool doing a lot recently, especially against the likes of Chelsea in that Carabao Cup final, is they create this box midfield. I think, obviously, at this point, it was more like this. Let me just reset up the Man City team. Elliott would kind of pin Stones. Diaz kind of pinned Walker. And Szoboszlai and Rodri were kind of occupied. Bradley had so much space over here. Núñez, kind of like I saw Gakpo have in that Carabao Cup final, Núñez was kind of given a free role. He could kind of drop in and push forward. I think Elliott was really good at enabling this as well. They created like this box midfield with Núñez almost kind of being the free man to try and find. Diaz also was making these incredible runs in behind, and Bradley was really pushing forward. And it was quite interesting to see, considering that normally it's something Trent does a lot. Trent does it more from a midfield position. Conor Bradley, who has been insane since Trent dropped out, by the way, seems to like to play very wide, and it's quite enjoyable to see because his crosses are phenomenal. He put a cross in the first half, which I think Núñez couldn't quite get to, but it was a brilliant ball across the face of the goal. Then we would also sometimes see Endo would drop into the back and Gomez would invert. Again, something that's not very unusual to see. They seem to have started inverting Gomez quite often, especially since this left-back situation at the club's a bit precarious. Gomez has started there, drops into a midfield position, and again, it was a similar sort of principle in this 3-2-5. And then eventually we saw the substitutes, and it was Conor Bradley who came off for Robertson, who would then cause a bit of a shift in the team because he went to left-back. Gomez then switched to the right back position, and Endo still played deep, but Mac Allister dropped to this side. Szoboszlai came off for Salah, and Elliott dropped a bit deeper. So they almost created this 4-3-3 that we see quite often. Potentially Diaz was dropping back as well off the ball to make it a 4-4-2, with Salah playing as the other striker alongside Núñez, and eventually Gakpo came on instead of Núñez. But what I really thought was crucial to this game was the role of this man here, Mac Allister. He has been sensational for Liverpool this season, but And I also want to shout out Van Dijk. I think he had a brilliant game as well, especially if you remember that moment. I think it was in the first half, a 1v1 versus Haaland. It was almost like cinematic football. It was perfect. And I think Van Dijk actually did very well to prevent Haaland from getting a shot away. We see Haaland in them situations so clinical, but Van Dijk just doing enough to put him off his shot and dragging him out wide a bit. I want to highlight to you, if I can get it up here, Mac Allister's touch map. I mean, he also scored the penalty as well, which from a poor back pass from Ake led to the Ederson foul, who eventually actually got injured and taken off for Ortega. But Mac Allister, look at his touch map. I mean, he started off as like the right of the midfield. He pushed forward so often into that front line, especially once they had the ball. Elliott would maybe drop a bit deeper and Mac Allister would push forward. He scored that penalty as well. I mean, Ederson nearly got to it, but it was a really good penalty and ultimately got Liverpool their point today, which they've thoroughly deserved. They almost deserved more. And in terms of attacking, when you look at the stats for his touches, he got 81 touches, which was the fourth most out of anyone in this game, with an 80% pass success rate. He was really good at creating stuff, but also defensively, as I said, in that 4-2-2 that they kind of played, or that 3-2-5, he was more in a deeper position, and defensively was incredible as well. 5 defensive actions, which whilst isn't exactly high, he made 4 tackles, which was the same as Conor Bradley and Van Dijk and Endo, to be fair. I think they all had a phenomenal game, and this game was really won in the midfield for Liverpool. They dominated that midfield. I think Man City really struggled to get anything. And also Van Dijk making 10 defensive actions, and his 97% pass success rate really was crucial for them playing out from the back. And they just pinned Man City back, something we don't see very often. The one player I do want to highlight, though, and who could have won this game for Liverpool on so many occasions, is Diaz. The amount of chances he had, he should have at least got a goal. Probably should have a hat-trick by the 60th minute. He should have had 3. I mean, there's no denying it, really. He had an XG of 0.53. He probably should have got something from that. I mean, he was really good at finding space, making runs, creating, dragging players out of position, enabling the Liverpool attacks. But the chances he had, I mean, he could have won this game for Liverpool. He didn't. On another day, he definitely does. But regardless, a very interesting game tactically. And I want to come back to the point I mentioned at the start. Was this a penalty on Mac Allister by Doku? I mean, it would have been the last kick of the game, assuming Mac Allister would have taken it, or maybe Salah actually. You'd think that they'd score it and actually go on and win this game. They'd be top of the table, and they'd be 4 points clear. Would it be 4 points or 2 points clear of Man City? I can't exactly remember, but I think that would put them in pole position for the league as well if they'd won this. Unfortunately, they didn't. I don't know who I wanted to win. I'm quite happy with the draw. It makes it a bit more exciting for someone that supports a team that aren't in the title race. But I really enjoyed that game. I actually thought it was a brilliant Super Sunday, and Liverpool should have won it. They should have done it. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of the game. Who's going to win the league? My bets are probably, I really want to say it's still Man City, but the more it goes on and the less they're getting results, I'm losing confidence in them, and I actually think Liverpool could go and do it. I just don't think Arsenal do have what it takes. Might regret them words, but for me it's Liverpool at the moment based on what Klopp is doing with this team. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'll see you guys very soon with another video. Thank you for watching and have a good evening.